This episode contains mature content.
When your days feel overwhelming and life has you anxious and stressed, you can find peace and hope in Jesus. Whether you're new to prayer or looking to deepen your relationship with God, Jesus Listens empowers you every day with quick but impactful devotional prayers. By praying scripture through this daily devotional prayer book, you'll experience true rest for your anxious mind, healing for your soul, and precious time in the presence of your Father. Jesus Listens is available now in a beautiful large text charcoal leather soft edition. Pick up your copy today and start your journey to peace. Look for Jesus Listens large text leather soft edition everywhere books are sold.
I'm not only pursuing a career for myself, but pursuing a career for people that are after me. Like, how can I help them? This may never happen for me, but how can I help the people that are coming up after me?
Welcome to the Jesus Calling Podcast. This week we hear from two remarkable women who dare to pursue their dreams even when faced with disbelief, ultimately dedicating their lives to helping others through their art and work. First, country music star Mickey Guyton shares her journey of breaking barriers and finding her voice in an industry that wasn't always ready for her. Then, author and speaker Lea Hurley opens up about how her personal health experiences shaped a life and a business she created to help herself, but ended up helping others in a way she never dreamed possible. Let's start with Mickey's story.
Hey y'all, I'm Mickey Guyton. I am a Black female country singer that sings out of Nashville, and I am so happy to be here. I grew up in Waco, Texas, or Crawford, Texas. I grew up singing in the church. It's crazy because I actually went to a school called Waco Christian School back in the day, and Joanna Gaines also went to that same school. But, I grew up like the Cosbys. Like, my family was literally the Cosby family. My mom and my dad have been married and fell in love. They were high school sweethearts. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She worked really hard and became a teacher's assistant so that we were able to afford to go to this private Christian school back in the day. We are the true Black Christian American dream family, I would say. But I grew up, going to this Christian school, and, country music and gospel music are brother and sister, and it has definitely inspired me in my musical career. And I remember being in Waco, Texas, and our church took a trip to Arlington, Texas, and went to a Texas Rangers baseball game. We were all the way up in the nosebleed section, and I will never forget the announcer saying, "Please stand," as 10-year-old Leanne Rimes sings the national anthem. That was my introduction into what I saw as country music. I didn't know what that was. I just heard this little girl like me singing like a grown woman, and that is what inspired me and wanted me to do music. I remember going to my grandma's house, and she lived in a city in Waco. It was called Riesel, Texas. It was a tiny, tiny town where the streets didn't have names, they had numbers. And I would go to her home whenever we would go visit my grandma. And I remember on the back of the doors, she would have VHS tapes I would watch at her house because she didn't have cable. So I was watching Fried Green Tomatoes, which was a huge Southern movie at the time. I watched Steel Magnolias, which is another huge movie at the time. And I used to watch Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, VHS tape duets. Like, that's what I watched. So I didn't even know that I was listening to country music. I just loved it. My life and how I grew up prepared me for this moment, because growing up in Waco, Texas, I grew up in predominantly all white neighborhoods. It all started from a young age, navigating these challenges of cultural differences when I started going to Waco Christian School when I was a little girl. I lived in Crawford, Texas, and I was supposed to go to a public school called China Springs. And one of China Springs' selling point at that time, back when I was a little girl, was that there were no Black kids that attended this school. So that was my introduction into experiencing racism as a kid. And as I moved into country music, I experienced that same thing. The challenges were people trying to change who I am or trying to interpret who I am as a Black woman. And I understand the cultural differences, but people were trying to make me palatable to a country music audience, which made no sense to me at the time. And it was really difficult. And that was a huge challenge for me growing up, was just trying to be accepted for exactly who I am. And that was really, really hard. Fast forward 1,000 years later, and I'm going to school in college. I was living in LA at the time, and I was singing demos for people. And there was a woman that I became friends with. Her name was Jessica Bendinger. And Jessica wrote Bring It On, which is a huge cheerleader mover back in the day in my time. And I was singing demos for her because she was writing a book. She said, Mickey, when I listen to you sing, you sound like a country music artist. And I said, I love country music, but I've never seen a Black person in country music besides Charlie Pride. Why would they ever accept me in that? And she was the one that strongly encouraged me to sing country music. It was a God thing. It was a spiritual thing. It chose me. Country music literally fell into my lap at that very moment. I was at a mall that I never go to, and I ran into this DJ that knew a producer that produced Glenn Campbell's last album before he passed away. And when I tell you it's a fate thing, it's a God thing, it really is, because I wasn't naturally pursuing it because I'm living in California. Where am I going to find a country music producer? And he was like, don't you sing? And I was like, yeah, I do sing. And he said, what kind of music do you sing? And in that moment, I said, I sing country music. And he said, that's so crazy because I've been working with this guy, Julian Raymond, who was producing Glenn Campbell's album. And it was Glenn Campbell that said, one thing I've never seen was a successful Black female country singer. And if she's out there and she is good, she will be successful. And that's how all of this came together. I got signed, and these people meant so well. I'm not saying that these people did not have good intentions. I do believe that they did, but going into writers' rooms and writing songs, they were wanting me to write songs about some blue-eyed, blonde-haired guy that I fell in love with. But the people that I fell in love with did not look like that. The people that I loved, that wasn't my story. The things that came out of their mouth, because you're Black, we need to let these people know that you really are country, that you really understand this industry. And I'm like, what do you mean? Being country, I grew up in the South. I grew up on gravel dirt roads in the country. If I showed you pictures of where I'm from, I come from more country spaces than a lot of these country artists, but I was having to constantly prove myself. There was a very specific moment back in 2018. I was living in Nashville. I was really frustrated with the music industry. I was lonely. I was sad. And I remember I would go to a church out in Nashville, Tennessee, and I went to the 8:00 service. And it's right around the corner from my house at the time. And I just went. I was just like, I'm just going to go to church and just try to feel something, And I went to this church, and the message, I was barely paying attention to the sermon, but the message that the pastor said was that it's okay to question God, and He has all the answers. And I remember I left church, I got my car, I drove home, I got in bed with all my clothes on, and I had a full-on session. I basically cussed out God, I will say. I was like, okay, so if you're telling me that I can question God, I was just like, why did you have me move here to Nashville, Tennessee? Why am I pursuing this career in country music? I'm miserable. What are you doing to me? And I'm going to pick up my Bible app. I'm going to look at my Bible app, and there better be a Bible verse for you to tell me and explain to me, what are you doing? I don't remember the verse, but whatever the verse was saying, it was basically saying like, what makes you think that you're owed these privileges over someone else? That was what the verse said. And it was just like, I started laughing because it was like, are you kidding me? Like, you're right. I have a roof over my head. I have a car. I can put gas in that car. I can buy myself food. I have a family that I can fall back on. I still have my mom and my dad. And how dare I think that I'm owed this over somebody else? And it kind of changed my thinking. It was like, what makes my circumstance? Like, how dare I think I'm owed something more than someone else, is what the Bible verse said. And I started to ask questions. I had talked to my husband. I was just like, why do you think country music isn't working for me? And my husband was like, because you're running away from everything that makes you different. Country music is 3 chords and the truth. Why aren't you leaning into that? And I was like, wow, you're right. That's when I was like, okay, well then I need to make sure that I'm not only pursuing a career for myself, but pursuing a career for people that are after me. Like, how can I help them? This may never happen for me, but how can I help the people that are coming up after me? And that's what changed my life. You know, the country music industry is very heavily male focused. And there's a lot of women that I love, white and Black, that have experienced the same type of discrimination that I've had. You know, these songs, Black Like Me and What Are You Gonna Tell Her, were therapy songs for myself. I've seen a lot. I've lived enough life to see things happen to people that I really care about. So these were 2 songs that I wrote in pain. I never in a million years thought anybody would ever hear these songs. These were songs that I wrote, I put away, and I thought, okay, this is for me. And then, you know, these moments happen, and I do believe this. Like, he enabled these songs to be heard, not me. You know, little old me from Crawford, Texas, it was never a possibility that anybody would even listen to this. I just kind of like posted them on my Instagram, and the wildfire that caught up with these, I'll never understand. It has to be a spiritual thing. It has to be, because I had nothing to do with other than writing about my pain. And there's someone else out there that felt that exact same pain that I felt. And I believe that that's why God gave me these opportunities, because he knew that I was not going to harbor them all for myself. Step outside and see other people, meet them exactly where they're at, and love them for who they are, right as they are, exactly as they are.
To learn more about Mickey's music or where you can see her in concert, visit MickeyGuyton.com and be sure to listen to her song, Scary Love, on the Jesus Calling Songs for Sunday CD. Stay tuned to Lea Hurley's story after a brief message.
Hey everyone, this is Faith Broussard-Cade, your host for the 4th season of Jesus Calling, Stories of Faith on Up TV. We're so excited to bring you inspiring stories of people from all walks of life who have turned to their faith in times of struggle and in times of joy. We're going to hear from some extraordinary guests this season, including Julie Chen Moonves, who you might know as the host of Big Brother. We'll also be joined by NFL Hall of Famer Terry Bradshaw and light heavyweight champion boxer Andre Ward. Grammy Award-winning gospel singer B.B. Winans, the world-renowned Italian tenor Andrea Bocelli, and actress Taraji P. Henson, in addition to many others. And of course, you'll get to hear more about me and my story too. I can't wait to see you there. Tune into these inspiring stories on Up TV.
Our next guest is Lea Hurley, founder and CEO of American Dream Nut Butter. Lea's path from ultrasound technician to founder of American Dream is anything but typical. After struggling with mysterious health issues, what started as a kitchen experiment grew into a thriving company known for its handcrafted, high-protein gourmet products. Along the way, her personal challenges inspired a journey that led to something far bigger than she ever imagined.
My name is Lea Hurley. I'm the founder and CEO of American Dream, and I make gourmet, healthy, high-protein nut butters that actually started by accident because I had cancer for 10 years and didn't know it. Before American Dream, I was in ultrasound tech. I did ultrasounds on all parts of the body, so I was helping diagnose cancer, infertility issues, just, whatever people might need an ultrasound for. For 10 years, I was sick all the time. I kept changing my diet because it affected my GI system so much. I also had constant nausea. I always felt like I was going to throw up. And I'm just like, what is wrong with me? I eventually got to where I was eating only 3 foods: turkey, rice, and nut butter. And so I just kept researching everything about health and wellness and nutrition and cutting things out of my diet and seeing if I felt better. Having all these labs done, and they couldn't find anything. And so finally, I started having pain just in the spot in my stomach. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to scan myself and see what I see there. So I'm scanning myself and I'm like, oh no, I see this mass has all this blood flow. I know from doing ultrasound that that's not good. So I take a picture of it and I go to the radiologist and I show it to him and he's like, this isn't you, is it? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, your doctor needs to order a CT with and without contrast, rattling off all these things I needed to have done. I call my doctor, they order all these tests. And I knew once they did the CT scan and I didn't have my results right away, I was like, okay, something's wrong. When they finally call, it was on Friday evening and I was at work, so I couldn't answer my phone. And so by the time I checked my messages, they had left it on a voicemail that I had stage 4 neuroendocrine cancer. I tried to call back, but nobody answered because it was after hours. I had to go with the whole weekend knowing that I had stage 4 neuroendocrine cancer. I had looked up all these things about it. The prognosis online is horrible because it's normally they don't catch it in time because they said it presents itself as stomach issues, anxiety, all of these things are just normal ailments that can be caused by other things. The only way it can be treated is to surgically remove it. And so if it becomes somewhere where they can't remove it, then it's like they can't do anything about it kind of things. And so I spent the whole weekend looking at my kids who were super young, I'm not going to get to see them grow up. Monday comes and the surgeon calls, explains what I need to do. I have to have this huge surgery where they cut me from sternum to pelvis. And then they have to remove part of my liver. They had to take out my gallbladder, the mass. They took out my pancreas and put it back in, my spleen, my intestines, everything to look for more masses. And so that's when I did. We did the big surgery and thankfully I didn't have to do any chemo or radiation. It was just recovery from the surgery, which was intense, but completely worth it. I was off work for 3 months. My husband had to be off work for 3 months to take care of me and the kids because I couldn't take a bath. I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. For 2 weeks, he had to carry me to wherever I had to go. It was a big ordeal. So we didn't know how we were going to pay our bills because we couldn't work. Neither one of us was working. We didn't have money saved up at the time, it was just a rough spot. My coworkers were donating PTO to us. They were giving us meal cards. Our neighbors were helping out. It was really community, coming together and supporting you in a time of need. And so after I had surgery, it wiped out my immune system and I couldn't eat things that were on the market because everything had hydrogenated vegetable oils or certain flavorings I couldn't have, or dairy or gluten or those types of things. Turkey and rice gets very boring very fast. I'm a major dessert person. So I figure out that I can make nut butter taste like the desserts that I was missing, but still have all the things that I was allowed to have, because I could only have the certain things. I had no intention of doing anything with it. But my husband, he was like, you should let our bodybuilding friends try it. And I'm like, no, nobody's going to like it. And he's like, yes, they will. And then finally, him and a friend took it to a bodybuilding competition without my knowledge, and everyone loved it. They started coming to our house or calling me like, hey, can you fill up my mason jar with Leah's peanut butter? So I started making it in our kitchen. I started sharing on social media just what I was doing. I had 12 followers at the time. Everybody got into watching me blend the nuts and put these different things in there and the toppings and all that stuff. And so then they'd start messaging me and being like, I want that jar that you just made. And I'm like, okay. Then they'd message me and can you make one that tastes like my favorite drink at Starbucks? And I'm like, well, I'll give it a shot. So I was taking custom orders at the time. And my husband is the one who's like, oh, let's turn this into something. I'm going to make a website and we're going to put this on here. And I'm like, okay, like you do that part and I'll just make them. It seems like an overnight success, but it's been a lot of long, hard work. I think we just had our 7th birthday. And so now we have about 70 employees. We have a 40,000 square foot facility. We make everything in-house. So that's part of the reason why we have to have so many employees, because we actually handcraft every product that we make. That could only be God, because like he installed garage doors for a living. I did ultrasound and personal training. Like neither one of us know business or marketing or anything. So we attribute all of our success to him because we are clueless. I think our community is the best thing about our business. A mother that reached out to me and said that we helped save her daughter's life. She was in the hospital with an eating disorder, and I also have an eating disorder, so that really touched my heart there. But she was in the hospital and on a feeding tube and just wouldn't eat anything. She was afraid of all food. Her mom talked to her about our product, and since it was lower in fat, lower in sugar, then she wasn't as afraid of it. And so she gained 30 pounds and was able to get out of the hospital. And her and I, we developed this friendship, and we still talk. We work with Tunnels to Towers a lot. We love what they do for veterans and their families. We also work with St. Jude a ton. We also have a product called One Tough Cookie, and 100% of the proceeds of that always go to a cancer charity, and that varies each month. So each month it will represent like a different cancer. And then we also donate jars of it to cancer survivors or patients who are currently going through treatment. So if you nominated a cancer survivor, send us their name, address, and all of that stuff. We'd send them a jar with a little card that says, that we're praying for them. I would say to anyone out there who is struggling, to change either physically or mentally or emotionally, that you really need to dig deep and find what your why is. Do you need to change for your kids? Do you need to change for your own personal health? Is it affecting your job? Like, what is it that you need to make a change for? Because you are going to have to rely on that every single day when it's hard. Like I said, I struggled with an eating disorder. I had cancer, all those things. And so when I would wake up and be in pain, but still need to go, do whatever for my kids, or I'd be afraid to eat more, because I was afraid that I would be sick, or, that this would have this certain effect. I'd have to hang on to that. Like, I'm doing this for my kids. If I don't eat, then I'm going to die. You know what I mean? If I don't do this treatment, then I'm not going to be here for them. And so I think that is what helps, really holding on to your why. And then I recommend Devotional every single day. I use the Bible app all the time, to do them. I also use Jesus Calling, Jesus Listens. And the funny thing is, the other day I was having a rough day, and I got the email to join this podcast. And on the bottom of it, there was an excerpt from Jesus Listens on there. And it was a random September day, but it was exactly what I needed to hear. And I'm like, okay, God, I hear you. I had been praying for an answer of tell me what I need to do. I don't know what to do for this particular thing that I was worrying about. So I feel like you also just have to be plugged in to him, plugged into the word all the time, so that you can receive what he's trying to tell you and to be open to where it might come from. This is from Jesus Listens, September 23rd. You have promised to give me peace that can displace the trouble and fear in my heart. If I become weary of waiting, please remind me that you also wait, so that you may be gracious to me and have mercy on me. As I spend time in your presence, I rejoice in the promise that all those who wait for you are blessed. In your gracious name, Jesus, amen.
To learn more about Lea Hurley and to try her products, please visit AmericanDreamNutButter.com. If you'd like to hear more stories about people who are making a difference through creating, check out our interview with David and Tamala Mann. Next time on the Jesus Calling podcast, we speak with Bethany Joy Lenz, actor, singer, director, and now author, who shares a deeply personal story of her time in a spiritually abusive community and the journey of healing and rediscovering faith that followed.
I believed that if I did all the right things, if I checked off everything on the Christian girl list, then God would be pleased with me and I would have a good life. It was a totally false version of the gospel. It was the counterfeit, which put me in the driver's seat of earning my happy life that I thought God owed me. I went on this journey of reconstructing my faith and understanding who God is.
Thanks for listening to the Jesus Calling Stories of Faith podcast on the Life Audio Network. Every week we'll bring you stories from people who share their journeys of faith and how prayer and a relationship with God transformed their lives. Be sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And leave us a review so others can be inspired weekly by these stories of faith. Finally, you can find encouragement, resources, and more on the Jesus Calling website at jesuscalling.com.